Hi and welcome back to another Retronaut video. So this is the second video in a series on the Mega ST. I bought a Mega ST4 just before Christmas 2024, and it's a machine that I've never owned before. I've never actually used an ST up until this point, and that's because back in the day I was a Commodore 64 and then later Amiga user. So that's the path that I followed back in the 80s. Now, obviously, it's 40 years later, and I'm curious about what the ST has to hold. I know that there's a lot of animosity to some degree or another between the two communities, which I think is a little bit sad, unfortunately, because I think you know, the Amiga and the ST are both great machines. So I am going to go into the ST closet, actually, and see what it has to hold. So before we move on and actually look at the Mega ST, I just want to show you a couple of things about the channel, a little bit of news that's going on, just, you know, a little mini update. And actually, once we've done that, we're going to actually look at the machine. It needs a little bit of restoration, although I think it's going to be quite a light restoration. It's mainly just cleaning the case, and then possibly the keyboard as well at some point. And today we're also going to test the machine and make sure it's working okay, because I actually don't know. I have no idea whether it's actually working. So yeah, but hopefully by the end of this video, we'll find out if we've actually got a dud or if we've got a fully working machine or partially working machine. Retro machines being what they are, it's usually partially working, and there's usually some TLC that has to be doled out to get it back on its little rubber pads. So anyway, the news, it's not anything major. I've got this box today, literally arrived earlier today. This is a sort of L-shaped tripod. If you can imagine, you've got an arm going up like this, and then another one going across. And this is actually going to be used in the workspace area over here. We're going to be looking at that later in the video. What I want to do is I want to try and get a top-down camera setup going, because up until now on the channel, I haven't had space to do that. Now that we have a dedicated workspace area, I should be able to do that. This tripod actually clamps onto a desk, and I did check beforehand that it could actually take the desk that I have here is 4 centimeters thick, and this I think can do 9, so that's perfectly fine. Also, it's going to be pretty thin, the clamp, because I want to ideally put it behind the table, and I don't want it well, basically bumping into the blinds that I have there, because there's a window right by the work area. And in the long run, I'd love to get it so that I can actually have 2 cameras on it at the same time. Unfortunately, for now, I can't really afford to do that. I actually use my iPhone to film this channel because obviously cameras are quite expensive. I have a relatively modern iPhone with a good camera in it, and that's why I use it. But I don't have really a good second camera. But what would be the perfect setup is if I can film from above and also can film from the front as well. So I can obviously talk to you when I need to, and at the same time, you can get really good views of the machinery while I'm working on it. You know, something like Adrian's Digital Basement. He's obviously evolved his setup over time, but I like the way his works. You know, the ability to interact with you and also get a sort of unobstructed view of the hardware at the same time. But for now, we're just going to have to just settle, I think, for one view, I think, just looking down. So in the future, if I can afford it, I'll get another camera. Obviously, if you join the channel, that would help with that. And otherwise, I'll just have to wait and see how it goes and see when I can afford to get that camera. Another thing that I received the other day are 2 new Infocom games. I'm a collector of Infocom games. I think they're fantastic. Now, there's something which is very special about Infocom games, is that some of the earlier games had a type of packaging called a folio. And this is one of the folio games which I already owned. Sorcerer, which was part of a mini-series of sort of magical-based text adventures from the early 80s. And if you know Infocom games, you'll know that they had fantastic packaging. They had no graphics, so what they didn't have in graphics, they made up for in packaging, which is absolutely marvelous. If you look at the box art on this, it's really fantastic, very professional. It reminds me a little bit of Electronic Arts with their sort of vinyl album packaging, which, to be fair, they were probably actually inspired by Infocom. I'm not quite sure which way around that was, but pretty sure Infocom pioneered it first. But anyway, I already owned this, but what I did receive also was Infidel, which is set in Egypt. So there's some kind of Egyptology thing going on here. Again, fantastic packaging on the back. I love the way they've got the hieroglyphics and the guys carrying little floppy disks and maps for the games and things like that. And it's called a folio because inside it is actually a folio. You've got the game disc and you've got the manual and you've got actual letters which have been written to you within game, as it were. And these actually pull you into the plot and make you feel sort of part of the universe. So I'm looking forward to playing Infidel. Never actually owned it back in the day. That's why I thought it'd be really nice to get the folio versions, because that's the sort of best experience you can have of the Infocom games. Another one which arrived is Witness. I already own the standard edition of Witness, which is in a box, which, to be fair, is actually fantastic. But I did find that there was a folio on the market for a reasonable price, so I decided to snap it up. I think there's only one more folio game I would need to get, really, which is Sea Stalker, which is it's sort of more like a child's game, I think, from what I understand, in the Infocom series. However, I'm sure it's very charming as well. So at some point, I would like to get the folio of Sea Stalker. There are actually a couple of other games as well, which come in very interesting packaging, but unfortunately they are off in the crazy universe of collectors' prices these days. I mean, talking literally thousands of pounds per game. So yeah, I won't be getting those unless somebody wants to donate them to the channel, in which case I'd be very, very happy to receive those. I'm talking about Suspended and Starcross, the special editions which came in those boxes. If you know anything about Infocom games, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, enough of Infocom. We're here to look at the Mega ST. So let's get straight into it and get on with the renovation and testing of this new machine. Okay, so let's get this machine broken down so that I can wash it. If you watched the last video, you would have seen that we got it to this point. The disk drive is going to come off pretty easily. I'm not really sure if I have to take off the power supply to take off the PCB. It looks like I'm going to have to do that. So anyway, let's get off the disk drive first. So there's a power connector here. It's a little bit stiff. There we go. I'm assuming that's attached to the logic board, so let's just leave that there. Okay, that's the drive. A little bit dusty, but cosmetically, it's not in bad condition. There is actually some, what looks like yellowing here, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's not dirt. So that I'm going to try and clean that carefully. So we'll get some IPA maybe and give that a clean later. Right then, let's try and get this power supply out. I'm assuming that's necessary. Let's try and doing this. I've seen these being taken off in other videos, so I'm assuming that I can do it. Okay, that's one. There's a screw there, but that seems to be loose. So that's just fallen out of the bottom of the case. Let's get that. Put a little container here. Put that in there. Put there as well. So the short screw goes there to hold in the power supply. That one's already out. That one's out. There's another one there. So on the other side, there's another screw. There we are. It's got that. Obviously, we have to unplug this. Now, I have actually taken photographs of this, so I can remember the orientation. Is that going to come out? Yeah. And not too surprisingly, this seems to be connected to the back of the case. Oh, there we go. Is that it? Oh, I see it. Okay. So there are little tabs here. So it sits in the tabs like this. So you have to pull it up and back at the same time. There we go. And oh, it's actually hardwired to the logic board here. There's not actually a connector. That's weird. I'm all right with that. Yeah, that seems to be the case. So the blue wires go. Oh, hang on a second. This is actually the floppy power. So it looks like I'm going to have to cut through this to allow me to detach this from the board. Otherwise, they're attached together, obviously, by this cable tie. So let me get something that I can try and cut that with. Can I cut that with this? So go with this. There we are. I've separated those two now. So we'll put the power supply there. I'd be interested to hear if anybody thinks that I should immediately recap this. I haven't actually tested it yet. I guess we do need to test this before we actually turn on the machine, right? And yeah, I'd be interested to know if anybody has experience with these power supplies, whether they're known to fail. From what I can see right now, everything actually looks okay in terms of capacitors. I can't see any leaking right now. Yeah, everything looks dry. These look okay. I guess one of the things that was in its favor was it did actually have a fan, which was relatively unusual for those days. Actually, no, that's not true. No, the Amiga 2000 did have a fan, the Amiga 4000, in the power supply itself. They weren't worried, obviously, about the heat of the chips. They weren't really at that critical point yet where they would actually damage themselves. But the power supply still actually did get hot. So yeah, they did have fans. Let's put that over there. And I've actually seen this replaced with a Meanwell power supply. So yeah, maybe that's an issue. Maybe that's something I need to do in the future. This is very dusty here, but that'll come off in a second, hopefully. It should come off pretty easily, obviously, with a little bit of elbow grease. Is there anything else attaching this to the case? Don't worry, I am actually holding it underneath, just in case it were to just fall off spontaneously. Doesn't seem to be, but there we are. So it does, yeah, it is actually loose. There we go. So I'll put that over here. And yeah, there's obviously quite a bit of dirt on here. You can see these brown marks. Where are they coming from? It's quite weird, isn't it? Okay, so you've got the RF shield again. Atari on RF shields, they're kind of legendary. They all seem to take it very seriously. But obviously, I'm assuming that it was needed in this case. The Amigas didn't always have complete RF shielding like the Amiga. I'm trying to think if the Amiga 4000, I mean the Amiga 2000 I think has a plastic front of the case. I'm not sure if there's a complete sort of Faraday cage around it. But you can see that with this machine, they really were very serious about the RF shielding. Now, I'm not sure if I should try and remove that from that. I don't really see the benefit. What about this? Does this come off? No. So I'll probably clean this in situ. There comes off the rear shielding. Let's keep that nice and safe there. Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll just give this a blow with my air. I've got like an air compressor thing, electric. So I'm just going to give that a blow tomorrow outdoors. I don't want to do it in here, just spray the dust around the cabin. But as I said in the last video, I mean, the logic board is pretty much mint. It's dusty. You would expect it to be dusty after all this time. The amount of work that it's obviously done. But I think really just a light dusting with my air gun and then possibly maybe just some Q-tips in this area, just some cotton buds, just to clean this area here. just lightly, just to get rid of that dust if it doesn't come off. But basically it's looking okay. Obviously this will need to be washed. I'll have to be careful about this label. It does seem to be protected on this side with some plastic. It's clear plastic. It's not just, you know, paper. So I should be able to give this a light wash. And what I'll probably do actually is just wash around the edges and concentrate on the back plate here to try and get any dirt off. And I'll not really get moisture on this area because I want to protect the label. I may give it a little bit of a wipe because it's got some marks on it. Maybe that will come off. But yeah, I think that's actually looking fine. Physically, it's in good condition. The plastic, fingers crossed, it doesn't seem to be brittle, which is, you know, a major bane, especially in Apple machines that I found from a little bit later. Obviously, it depends on the plastic. And to be fair to these companies, I guess they really don't know what a plastic is going to be like in 20 or 30 years' time, obviously. Plastic technology is always changing. And these may have been relatively new in the 1980s and 90s. And some of the plastics have turned out to be super brittle. And that's a pity, but that's the way it goes. So yeah, that's going to get a wipe down and a careful clean. I did, off camera earlier today, have a look at this. I don't know if you can see that, but basically I give this area a light scrub, which just with a scouring pad and some washing up liquid. And you can see, even with that, there's just an amazing difference between this area here and this area here. Hopefully you can see that. This area is kind of brown and there's kind of like smeary smudges across it. And it looks like that's just filth. I did notice it yesterday. I was looking at these this is kind of like a washing board, an old-fashioned washing board. And if you look at it from this direction, you can just see that there's just dirt on it. So that's great. You know, I'm hoping that with, you know, washing up liquid, warm water, I can get this machine to look reasonably good. There are unfortunately a couple of scratches here, which is a pity because it is actually on the face of the machine. But I'm hoping, yeah, we can clean this up pretty well. So anyway, let's have a look at that next. I'll get this into my, I think I'll do it in my sink, and we'll see how this cleans up. But before we do that, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay, where you can make your tech dreams a reality. And now in PCBWay's new Project Share, you can upload your projects and share them with the community. And if you do use any of these projects, a percentage of the money that you pay will actually go to the author. So you can share your projects, and you can also benefit the projects that others have shared on PCBWay. So if you do have any projects, why not upload them to PCBWay and get them out to the community? And of course, why don't you browse the project share and see if there's something there that's interesting for you? Because whether it's PCB prototyping, PCB assembly, 3D printing, or even CNC machining, PCBWay is the way. Starting with an instant quote for your PCB projects, PCBWay will leap into action, building your PCB, assembling it for you if you wish, and once it's passed their quality tests, it'll be winging its way to you in a flash. PCBWay, PCB prototyping the easy way. Okay, so let's get this clean. Let's get the water hot. Seems reasonable enough. And let me just show you this, what we're trying to get rid of. Hope you can see that there. There's a clean patch, as I showed you earlier, where I actually tried cleaning it the other day. And then you've got this horrible brown streak on it. It's really weird, really, how it could be like that. Now, there's the actual natural color of the gray. And that's what we're going to try and get back to. I don't think we're going to get to that because I think there is a little bit of yellowing going on here. But I think at least we can get rid of this dirt. And I think I'm probably just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to try retrobrighting it because it's actually, I think, quite uniform in its yellowing, which is very mild. And I think we'll go with just keeping it like this. But definitely we need to get off this layer of grime that has built up on it over the years. Okay, so let's try putting some washing up liquid in. On the inside, there's the fan I was trying to show you earlier, but it wasn't very easy to see. As you can see, it's filthy, but that's okay. It's just a bit of dust, hopefully. Hopefully it's not greasy. And then there's these funny little brown marks everywhere. So I'm just going to try and use a little bit of liquid soap and just try and get that off. On the bottom, I'll give this a quick wipe, see if we can get off this mark. Maybe not. But like I said, it's in very good condition, really, so I don't really want to do anything to damage the stickers, for instance. I think I'll concentrate on the back, trying to get that a bit cleaner. Okay, here goes. I'm assuming these dots are maybe greasy dust, I don't know. I don't know if this is in like a greasy environment, you know, like in a kitchen where you can get little particles of grease in the air. I'm not sure. Let's just try wiping it off. A bit of extra liquid soap. Let's just leave that on there for a second. Giving the fan a little bit of a clean. Well, leave that for a few minutes. Let's have a go at this. I wonder if this person was a smoker, because it has a kind of yellowy brown colour to it. Maybe this is nicotine. It doesn't smell of it, but you never know. It's looking a little bit better now. Still needs maybe a little bit more scrubbing. Let's give the inside a bit of a go. Okay, what I want to try to do now is using a bit of magic eraser. I don't want to take off the texture. Slightly rough texture on it, but we'll try using a bit of magic eraser and see what that does. This is looking so much better here already. I can see this grill was absolutely filthy. Actually, yeah, it's looking pretty good, I think. Yeah. Okay, let's try lightly using this. Obviously the magic eraser is a mild abrasive, so that will just help take a little bit more of that layer of dirt off. It seems to have built up. Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of yellow there, so it is actually taking some yellowing off, some dirt. Although, I mean, I must admit, it's not a huge amount. I think that's all I want to do for now. I think that's looking okay. Let's go back onto this. Put this here. You can see there how dirty that is. That it's not just washing up liquid, there's the filth in there as well. So let's use the soap and water on here first. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. See what it looks like when we put it together. Is it a match? Yeah, it's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, just going to leave that there for a minute. There's a little scratch here, so we can get this out. Okay, I'm going to get the disk drive because that needs a little bit of cleaning on the front. So let me show this to you. Now, this is obviously a custom design for an ST. And because of that, I'm not going to take this plate off, the face plate, because it could actually break when I do that. But you can see it's definitely very yellowed here, and I'm hoping that's just dirt. So I'm going to get some sponge, get rid of the water on it, give it a scrub. Then I'm going to use the magic eraser to do the same thing. Basically, I'm just going to try avoiding getting water inside the device. And hopefully we can get this a little bit cleaner. And take the water off it. I don't want it to build up. That's the dust off it. It's very dusty. Okay. Try and get some. I want to try and get this magic eraser dry. What a great noise, huh? There's squeakiness going on. Struggling to get the button yellow and remove the yellow from it. And you can see here, this is actually proving to be quite difficult. The actual slot itself, the door, looks reasonably good, but this bit here is quite yellow and I just can't get rid of it. So the only way to really get this, I think, any more closer to grey is to actually retrobrite it. As I said, that would involve taking this off. Oh, it looks like it's actually held on with screws, which is not so bad. So I could do that in the future. If I really wanted to, I could pop this in maybe with another retrobrighting and get this being closer to grey. But for now, it looks like that's pretty much it. Let's just get the liquid off, the water. That's pretty dry now. It just needs to air dry. There we go. I think that's it. Right then, so I'm going to put this out of the way, leave it to air dry. And these guys we need to rinse. So let's let the water out, the soapy water. And then let's just give it a rinse with warm water. There's a bit of corrosion inside here. Wondering whether I should try and convert this hatch here to CR232 batteries. I'd have to try and find out what the voltage is for this and see if there's a mod where you can just put one of those instead of actually using these, because obviously these are unreliable because they will always leak if you leave them in. There we are. And I think I'll just dry up this area now with some, just give these a quick wipe down to accelerate the drying so it doesn't damage. You can see the warranty seal label unfortunately has fallen off, but underneath, interestingly, there is a plastic one, a sort of backup. So Atari had that covered just in case you ever washed your computer and the paper fell off. They actually had a plastic label underneath it. I don't know if you can see that, but the liquid coming off it, the water, does seem ever so slightly yellowy. It's quite interesting. So I'm expecting the monitor adapter for this maybe on Friday. Today's Thursday. So this will obviously dry overnight. It's actually dark right now. It's about 9 p.m. So fingers crossed that adapter turns up tomorrow. And that means I can do some testing on this machine either tomorrow or on Saturday. So let's put this back together if I can. Which way around is it? The other way. Great stuff. That's looking pretty good, huh? Yep. Massive improvement over what it was like before, all brown and smudgy. Now it's a nice uniform grey. As I said, maybe it's a little bit warm. It's hard to tell in here, artificial light, which is actually quite yellowy anyway. But I think that's looking pretty cool. This drive front didn't come out so much better. Still looks quite yellowy here. Definitely a yellow tinge to that. But overall, I'm very happy with it. Okay, let's take this back to the cabin and we'll just let it to dry. And we'll pick it up a little bit later. So I've got the logic board outside and I've got my air duster. So I bought this air duster about 1.5 years ago, and up until that point I was using cans of compressed air. But the problem was I was going through them at such a fast rate and they were expensive. I think they were like £10 a can or something like that. It just made so much more sense to get something like this, you know, mains powered, and it just gives you really high pressured air. It's very good, and it's a purchase I definitely didn't regret getting. Whilst I'm at it, let's do the power supply as well. There we go, a lot better. So some good news. Today, the adapter turned up for the monitor, the VGA connector. So as far as I understand, this goes into the ST. Obviously, that's the standard ST monitor pin. There's the VGA out, and obviously you can choose between mono and color. Mono should work on any VGA monitor, as I mentioned earlier, but color needs a monitor that will actually sync to 15 kilohertz, as far as I understand it. Not tried it yet, but we'll look at that very shortly. As you can see, I'm ready to actually test the power supply. I have it out here on my workbench. I've got to be very careful here. Obviously, it's exposed. I really don't want to touch any of the metal parts on this if I can avoid it. So I'm going to turn it on. The fan will come on. And I've already got this, my black lead here from my multimeter plugged into the neutral pin. I read online that black is neutral, red is 5 volts, and blue is 12 volts. And apparently the blue cable can vary in color, but black and red are always used for the 5 volts. Well, actually black is always neutral, obviously, and red is always 5 volts. Anyway, so let's test it. I'm going to just touch the PCB here and then the power switch. There we go. Don't know if you can hear that, but the fan's running. I'm going to set this to DC, because obviously this is doing an AC to DC conversion. And first of all, we'll test the 5 volts. Actually, maybe I can just do it through here. That's perfect. And then the second one should be the same, right? Exactly the same, obviously. And let's try the 12 volts as well. Well, that seems a little bit low to me. Obviously, that should be 12, and I think there's a 10% tolerance usually, but you know, you'd expect it at least to be something like 11.7 or something like that. That does seem a bit low. Let me just turn this off. Does that mean we can still test? Well, the disk drive will be using the 12 volts. The disk drive may not work, or may be unreliable at least, but I think the logic in the board will be okay. So I think we're still okay to test, but it does indicate that maybe a recap is in the future for this machine, or possibly even a new power supply. It's a bit drastic, to be honest, for a new machine to go straight towards having a new power supply. So for now, I'll probably just go for a recap on the capacitors which are handling 12 volts, and hopefully there's some kind of loss in capacitance in those, and that will actually fix that. But I'll have a chat with some other people as well. They're knowledgeable people out there in the community. Vinny's one of the guys who I'm friendly with in the Amiga community. I'll get some advice from him and proceed accordingly. But yeah, good news. The power supply does basically work. 5 volts is bang on the money, but the 12 volts does seem to be a little bit too low really to be viable. But we'll see. We'll test it out once we've got the machine working, fingers crossed if it boots, and we'll see how it goes from there. Okay, so I think I have everything I need now to actually test the machine. I'm not actually going to test out the disk drive straight away, and the reason for that is this extra standoff here that was originally okay when I opened up the machine actually broke off when I was putting this back on, trying to put the case back on just to make sure, you know, went back together fine. So I've just glued this about 10 minutes ago, and I'm just going to leave that to dry for a bit before I actually try and put this back on. So let's just give it a little bit more time before I try and do that. Got myself 2 power cables, one for the power supply for this and one for the monitor. So they're both available to use. I need to put this back in, the power supply. So let's just get this in position here. And for now, I'm just going to sit it in the case. I'm not going to actually screw it in because we just want to test it. I'm always surprised when I watch other videos and I see people, you know, doing a test like this, and they immediately screw everything back in. And I don't know, I smell a rat when I see that. I kind of think, well, they obviously have tested it already and they know everything's working fine, because I would never really be so bold as to assume that everything's working just when you know, you just put something back in the case. So yeah, that's aligning there, that's aligning. This is actually further away from the back than I thought it would be. I thought it was right up against the back, but in fact there's a bit of a gap of about 5 millimeters. So this can remain like this for now. We're just going to put this in. I checked on the photograph, this should actually plug in here. So that should be good. As we know, the two red are giving us 5 volts, and the blue, which should be giving us 12, is actually giving us 10.87, I think it was, something like that. So it's debatable whether the floppy will actually work anyway, but we'll have to see. Yeah, this doesn't need to be plugged in because that's just for the battery. Let's put the adapter in. This is the floppy drive monitor port. So yeah, that plugs in fine. And I'll put it on mono for now. I'm assuming that the machine, I don't know actually, I mean, what happens when it boots up? Is it automatically in mono mode? Does it detect mono mode? Do you have to put it into mono mode? I don't know. I have no idea what's going on, to be honest. We'll just have to try it out and see what happens. So let me get the monitor. So this monitor is a little bit of an unknown. I really don't know if it's going to work with this machine. I have tested it with DVI and I've tested it with HDMI and it works fine. Not tested it with the VGA yet. I'm assuming VGA will work. I've actually bought another monitor, picked it up today, and that one's VGA only. And I actually want to test it with this machine as well, because this machine effectively is VGA only for now. So I thought it would be quite cool if I just used a VGA monitor with it. So let's plug this in. Now, obviously, I don't know if this machine is going to boot up, so we'll have to see. And now, being careful, obviously, because the case is open, I don't want to touch anything, give myself a nasty shock. So I'm just going to make sure I just touch on the PCB on here. Okay, just another check, just make sure I've got nothing, like any screws or anything that could cause a short or something. Should be all right. I've actually already pushed down on some of these chips because they're in sockets. This one's soldered to the board. These two are socketed, and I think there was maybe one here, one of these. Oh yeah, here it is here. There's only so much you can do, right? Okay, let's turn it on and see what happens. We've got something. Hey, it's working. I don't have a mouse, I don't have a keyboard. Okay, let's turn it off and plug in a mouse and a keyboard. It's a bit cramped here on this table with a monitor as well. I mean, obviously this monitor would go on top normally, but I can't do that right now. So let's just push it back a bit. Push this back. There we are, it's a bit better. What's going on with this mouse? I guess this is an adapter, is it? Yeah, must be, because it's got a super long cable. Well, actually, let's have a look. So this is male. And it has to go into male. Okay, so that's what it is. It's a gender changer. Okay, fair enough. So we have to use this. Let's plug this in here. I always found this a bit of an odd setup with the ST, the way they put the mouse underneath. Apple obviously did this better. I think most people would agree with the serial bus that you could actually, you know, the universal serial bus that you could plug into their keyboards, which went in the side, and obviously was a lot smaller as well. But that was a bit of a leap forward for Apple, I think, in terms of their design. So obviously we didn't have that with the ST. And now this cable, the rat's tail, as I should call it. Okay, I'm guessing there's no particular direction that this should be plugged in the sense of either end will go either way. I think it's a straight through. So we are, it's plugged in there. And as far as I understand it, it goes in the side here. But like I said, everything is new for me. Okay, that's gone in. We've got the mouse. There we go. Okay, take two. Yeah, not sure the cable's actually working. Well, the mouse isn't working. Oh, we do seem to have a power light here. But I don't want to say it, but I'll have to say it. The lights are on, but there doesn't seem to be anybody in. Have I done this wrong? I don't know. Are you shouting at the monitor telling me that I've done this incorrectly? Well, I mean, it's a gender changer and it plugs into the bottom of the keyboard. That plugs into there. That plugs into there. Although I must admit, yeah, that feels super jank. Oh, God. Yeah. So, mixed results, right? I don't know what will happen if I try color. Let's just try color for a second. I'm assuming that's not going to work. In the sense of maybe I need to actually go in and change the mode and then it'll be in color. But anyway, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Out of range. Okay. So that does not bode well. That suggests that maybe the monitor itself can't handle the color modes, and it is actually working, possibly. But as we said earlier, it's a 15 kilohertz signal. It should be 30 for VGA. So yeah, we're not getting any image, as you can see. So the computer works. The graphics work, which is great. I haven't heard any sound yet. We don't have any sound hooked up. So we have working computer, we have graphics working. Because it's an ST, it's booting up into the OS because the OS is on the ROMs. So we know that the ROMs are working, which is great as well. The ROMs are German ROMs, as you can see here. It says DATI. I will obviously have to replace these ROMs with English language ROMs. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for me to use this machine. We have to get some ROMs written so that we can use the machine in English. I think, need to wait for a new cable because I think this cable's actually kaput, to use a German phrase. Yeah, I think it's actually bought the farm, to use an American phrase, and to use an English phrase. I think that's a dead cable. So unfortunately, without that cable, we can't test the mouse and we can't test the keyboard really, although it does seem to be working fine. So yeah, I mean, I actually am very positive about this. The machine has come from Germany. Nothing much is broken apart from the standoffs, which are, by the looks of it, made out of incredibly brittle plastic by this point in time. Unfortunately, that's just one of those things. I don't know really what to do about that. Maybe people out there in the ST community can make comments on this video and say, what is the sort of standard procedure on a Mega ST to try and fix these standoffs? I could do the thing with super glue, where you mix that with bicarbonate of soda, which makes a very strong cement. But the only problem with that is it would produce a very crusty, horrible looking logic board. And of course, there are traces right next to these standoffs. So I don't really want to do that. It's not like they're just cosmetic. We do need these standoffs to hold the floppy drive in the right position. And one of the issues is that when you put the floppy drive in the machine, and you're putting the case back on, there will be a shearing force on that drive. In other words, you're trying to put the drive through the hole here in the case, and if you don't get it quite right, it's going to push the floppy drive in this direction, and that's a shearing force which is very strong, and that has quite a high chance of breaking those standoffs. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened earlier when I broke this standoff. I think it was when I was fiddling around with the floppy drive trying to put the case back on. I must have pushed a little bit thinking that I could do that without any issues, and obviously it broke the standoff, so that's a bit of a pity. The power supply as well. I don't know if there are any schematics out there for this particular power supply. It'd be fantastic if anybody watching this video could give me some help with finding those. I did do a little bit of searching for the Mega ST power supply for pinouts, and I didn't really find much information. I found information on the Mega STE, but I didn't actually find anything for the Mega ST itself. So that makes me wonder whether there are schematics available out there for this power supply. If I can't get those, The only thing I can really do is to disassemble it by taking off the capacitors and then, you know, getting capacitors which match those. I don't really want to do that because I think what I'd rather do is focus on the 12-volt rail, because that seems to be the problematic one. The 5-volt rail seems to be bang on the money. I mean, as you can see, the machine is actually working. So yeah, shall we do one last test? Let's try putting in a floppy disk. That might be interesting. So let's turn this off. There we go. Wow, felt a bit like playing Jenga. I was worried I was going to break it just doing that. Let's turn it on, see if we get any lights on. Yeah, there is a light, obviously, and I heard a noise. Some kind of mechanism noise going on. And I'm assuming it's going to boot up into TOS. Let me get a disk and we'll try putting that in once it has booted into TOS. And we'll see if we can actually get it to show a disk on the desktop. I haven't tested these disks, I must be honest. They are actually from a video game that I own from back in the day, but I do believe I have some Atari ST disks, so let me just try and get that. This is my copy of Bureaucracy by Infocom, and as you can see here, it's an Atari ST series. Ah, interesting, okay. I didn't know it did that. Now that I have the floppy drive plugged in, it's actually got disk station and disk station. Well, they both seem to be exactly the same. Is disk station the German word for floppy disk? Floppy drive? I wasn't aware that it was, but anyway, I don't speak German, so maybe it is. And there seems to be a brand new verbatim 3.5-inch disc here. I mean, literally brand new. So let's just try putting a blank disc in, because I don't want to put in the actual Bureaucracy disc if I don't need to, really. Let's try popping this in. I'm assuming that if it works, something should pop up on the desktop. The light has gone off, which isn't a good sign, is it, really? Let's try the Bureaucracy disk, you never know. Yeah, it's exactly as I feared. It looks like the voltage for the floppy drive is just not going to hack it. As we saw earlier, 10.87 is not 12 volts. And the light has gone off now. Let's just try power cycling it, see if it comes back from that. So it looks like we'll have to save testing out this on here for another day once we've got the power supply sorted. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for me to do that because obviously I have to order the parts. Yeah, it's come back on again. Okay, well that's interesting. So I'm assuming that what happens is when I put this in with an actual disk and it has to do something physical, the 10.8 volts is not enough power to actually do that. And then the drive is just going dormant for whatever reason. So yeah, this is just not going to work for now. And I think what we'll do is we'll try the other monitor. We'll see if we can get a color signal to work on it. So if this doesn't work, we've got a bit of a dud really, because I bought this specifically for this machine. I don't really want to use it in black and white mode because I want to play games in it, things like that. So fingers crossed, but yeah, I'm getting ready for failure. I think I can feel it coming on. There we are, as you can see, VGA only. And I guess I need to change it to, oh, actually I don't need to change the input, do I? Because it's just VGA only. Okay, well let's just try turning it on, see what happens. Detected the signal, I think. Okay, well it's working. Ah, it's automatically adjusted it. It was a little bit too far to the right. I'm not sure if it's too high. And I think what I'll do when I do the next reboot is I'll just unplug this because it obviously boots up a lot faster without the floppy drive plugged in. Yep, looks the same. Is it my imagination or does that look a bit darker? Not really sure. Okay, so that's fine. It's at least usable in black and white mode, so that shows the monitor works fine. I haven't bought a dud. Okay, let's try changing this to color. And I'm expecting the same thing again, out of range. Oh, hey! Woohoo! Wow, that is lucky. That's very lucky. It works. It works in color. Fantastic. So this monitor, which I must admit was just a complete gamble. It was £15. It was so cheap. And the person that was selling it was just around the corner from where I live. So I popped out earlier today to go and get it. And I obviously didn't know if it was going to work or not. But it does actually work. That's great. Fantastic. Okay, and how did we do today? Well, the machine works, which I'm really, really happy about. It came over from Germany, and any kind of international freight is obviously stressful on the machine. It looks like the standoff, the one at the front, obviously got a bit damaged on the way by the looks of it. And unfortunately, as we saw, another one of the standoffs gave up the fight today and fell off. I have glued them both. We shall see how good that glue bonds with the plastic and keeps them in position. Fingers crossed they're not going to snap off again. We have plenty of stuff to do in the next video in this series. We've got to get those TOS ROMs and replace them with English language versions, because otherwise I'm going to struggle to use the machine if everything, all the menus, etc., are in German. It would be nice to learn another language like that to use the machine, but I'm unfortunately not so good at languages, so that's not really realistic. What else do we have to do? Well, we know the power supply has a problem, don't we? The floppy drive did not seem to be functional. It did actually start up. In fact, it kind of worked in exactly the way I thought it would. There was just enough power there to get the light to come on, because obviously an LED light doesn't use a lot of power. There was enough power for the motor of the drive to spin, and for the stepper motor to move the heads. But when you actually put a disc in, and I actually had to physically move the disc, which has some friction on it, it didn't really seem to perform. The LED light went off and nothing seemed to happen. So the low voltage on the 12-volt rail doesn't seem to be doing us any favors there. We also have the cable for the keyboard, which appears to be, as I said earlier, kaput. I may actually try unplugging it and plugging it back in the other way. It could be that it's just marginal, and if I plug it in backwards, if that makes sense, the other way around, it may work. You never know. But I just have the feeling that that's basically dead. It's a dead cable. Luckily, I did order a new cable about 4 days ago now, 5 days ago. I think it was on Monday of last week. So hopefully that's going to turn up pretty soon. And then we'll actually be able to test the keyboard and mouse. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it's only that cable that's the problem, that there's actually nothing wrong with the keyboard, because the keyboard looks in great condition. I can't see why there would be any physical problem with it, but you never know. Like I said, it's a retro machine, so there could be something wrong with the electronics in the keyboard. Anyway, I'm really happy with the progress today, because we found out that the second monitor that I bought actually does work in color VGA. Unfortunately, the first monitor doesn't, but it's not so bad, because that other monitor, which is actually over there, is more flexible. It has DVI, HDMI, and VGA. And I actually needed a new monitor to work with my Apple IIgs, because I found that the HDMI output of that machine, which is a modification, it never came with that back in the day, doesn't actually work with my Dell monitors, which I'm really disappointed about. And the reason for that is I bought a lot of Dell monitors in the anticipation of the fact that their DVI connectors would allow me to use HDMI outputs with them. And that didn't seem to be the case, at least with the 2GS. But I have tested that monitor with my 2GS, and it does actually work. So it's not wasted. It's a perfectly good HDMI monitor, and it can be used with any of my machines which have a HDMI mod in the future. Anyway, this video is quite long, so I won't go on any further. Let's finish it for now. And I hope you'll come back when I release the next video, which hopefully will be reasonably soon. Obviously, I need to order some parts, I think, maybe for the power supply before we can continue. But hopefully, yeah, that video will be pretty soon. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. And if you did, then I would be very thankful if you could hit the like button, because that will then promote this video to other people out there in Retroland. And if you've never been here to the channel before and you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And please, if you do subscribe, make sure you hit the notification button, the bell, because that will make sure that you get notified about future videos that we release. Otherwise, they will get released and they'll just sail you by, and that would be pretty sad if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the next video in this series. That being said, I hope you have a good day and hopefully see you in the next video. But until then, take care.